Star Citizen creates arguably the most impressive planetary objects in the gaming industry. But how do they do it? Today we're going to take a look at the tech that goes into planetary production, how much faster and more efficient it's gotten over the years, and what's coming next with new planets and star systems coming online in Star Citizen. If you enjoy, make sure to check out the full playlist of retrospective videos I make for Star Citizen in the video description. Welcome to Space Tomato Gaming. I'd like to thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. And a big shout out to my first YouTube channel members, Renzo B, Extreme Tuber, Jasper, Jay, and Aerialist. Planetary surfaces were introduced to Star Citizen back in 2016, with a simple planetoid with some very basic features handmade for that specific occasion. Jump to the present and you'll find that the process has been made partially procedural and streamlined in a major way. But it wasn't a one-step process getting there. Star Citizen is now using PlanetTech v4 and continues to grow with almost every update. When version 1 was shown off, this was about as basic as it got. Simple shapes, small divots and valleys with small hills. It was buggy and ultimately an internal testing environment. When 3.0 launched in 2018, players were introduced to ecosystems created on each surface. This version included 3 channels by which these ecosystems were made, as well as the planet and system-sized content creation tools which allowed for planetary bodies to be created. This also required an entire rework of the 3D engine terrain system. Later that year, in November of 2018, PlanetTech version 3 was rolled out alongside Hurston and her moons, with the goal of being more artistically focused. With the underlying foundation having been launched with 3.0 and iterated upon with each patch, this was a chance for CIG to focus on creating more variety and fidelity in these systems. This included the ability to integrate cities, day and night cycles, and vegetation. New tools were also made to improve the creation process. Specifically, rather than 3 channels, each system was now made using 16 channels, which were simplified through temporal differing. However, this would lead to planets requiring quite a few files to make, sometimes up to even 500. This was when PlanetTech really started to take off. As the tools reached maturity, the process of creating these planets became more streamlined and much easier to do, and led to small improvements being made across patch after patch throughout the year of 2020. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a step back and look at PlanetTech v3 and the problems that needed to be solved in that iteration. Particularly with PlanetTech v3, there were too many files required to maintain the quality of the planets, as I said, with sometimes over 500 being included. The global textures and local textures didn't match, so you couldn't really find a spot that you had seen in orbit and go land there. The biomes on each planet lacked variety, and the large-scale transitions between each biome were linked to tiles rather than areas. And obviously, speed was very important moving forward. The process was still pretty slow in making these planets and moons, and they really needed to speed it up as more planets were going to start to be included in the game. By the end of last year, in October 2019, 364 days ago, we saw some big changes on the horizon at CitizenCon. This was where we learned how the final version of PlanetTech would fix the problems I just listed. The simplified plan was to create faster processes with smaller ecosystems and improved blending and transitions, with the main focus being on speed. As I mentioned earlier, as the game grew, the team knew that they would be required to bring in more and more planets at a much higher rate, and with planets like Terra Prime on deck, they were going to need a lot of variety and diversity to go into those planets as well. This wasn't realistic, as even just a year ago, painting a planet meant maintaining hundreds of files and keeping them all up to date by hand so that nothing broke too horribly when new planets were created. In addition, rocks, ground textures, geological features, colors, materials, they were all painted in individual passes. This was incredibly time-consuming and made the planet building process take quite a while. Now, however, with PlanetTech V4, painting planets means applying an artistic color-based paint pass as well as all other pieces of content such as rocks and ground textures at the same time. This is an example of how the development of the engine-defining tools that CIG is making have slowly sped up the process that they use to make these objects in-game. In addition to these painting procedure improvements, height map details, creation, and implementation have also been improved in a big way. But how can these tools complete these tasks in such a speedy and procedural way? Every surface can now be detailed and painted using a dataset that defines what each point of the surface experiences in terms of color, texture, and features based on the specific temperature and humidity of that point. This allows devs to change areas on a global scale using systemic climate data rather than random color maps. Another tool that has made a huge difference in the planet creation process is the height map brush system. Brushes can now be created with height map data included to generate planetary textures on a variety of scales. Each brush can also be saved for use later on when a similar surface might need to be made, but they remain modular so that specifics can still be changed. And think about this, these tools have compacted the process in terms of complexity and size to 1/5 of what they used to be. That means now there's 5 times the amount of time and effort that can be put into perfecting and improving that initial creation of a planet or moon. It's a lot like how smartphone processors and batteries have been improving and offering more power and longer life over the years. But companies have consistently found more things for those processors and batteries to do rather than letting that power go to waste. Looking at the combination of these two milestone tools in action yields some very impressive surfaces. 2 minutes, I would say it took, to go from this to this. And the possibilities start forming in your mind, right? You see the potential of what this can do for future planets with various types of surfaces. Want to see something even crazier? Watch as our designer changes one value, to create a cascading effect which creates a completely new area on a planet. And these nodes that are being used to construct these brushes aren't pre-made. They can be created just like Photoshop paintbrushes. And in line with 20 other nodes, they can lead to some spectacular variations from minimal effort. Now, the resources available for this aren't unlimited. Each planet is limited to about 15 height maps, each at a resolution of 2000 by 2000, providing the capabilities of very high detail. But while each height map is unique to itself, the way it blends with its surrounding height maps also creates diversity as well. Consider these points and the fact that the planets will be made in layers, and let's construct a little math equation. The first layer of construction is the height map, which sets the stage for the next layer, the temperature humidity graph that overlays the whole planet. This dataset is used to apply the biomes first, and then the smaller sections that we see here. After that, comes the handcrafted layer with ground cover, trees, plants, and resources. And then finally, caves. The amount of combinations that can come from a system like this after CIG has created 40 different biomes, 200 nodes, 15 ground cover variations, and hundreds of rock formations, not to mention a modular procedural cave generation, well, it gets a bit daunting to think about. And then after all of this is considered, procedural and dynamic weather systems will be applied based on the temperature and humidity as well. So while you can see snowstorms and dust storms at this current moment in time, which will roam the planet, cause flight complications, and create hazards for players, you can also expect thunderstorms, windstorms, extreme fog, and heavy rain in the future. While PlanetTech V4 is a good foundation for the final game to be built off of, it's not the end of planetary development from CIG. Let's talk about the future and what we can expect to see in planet creation in the near and long term. There are two sections of this subject I'd like to discuss. First are the things we've heard mentioned in conversations. In addition, there are also the things we've seen in the game engine working in dev builds. Let's start with the latter. Lava planets. Actively running lava which is moving and hot isn't going to happen with the implementation of the new star system, Pyro. Unfortunately, moving liquid is not a possibility in the current state of the game past C-scale turbulence. However, dried lava and associated land formations will most definitely be introduced into the game when Pyro is brought to the public. There will be different types of formations used for various biomes, providing an interesting new landscape for players to explore. This also includes sleeping volcanoes, which we have also seen in the editor as well. Steep cliffs have been something both fans and devs have wanted for a long time, and we consistently move closer and closer towards that being a reality, so expect that at some point as well. The problem is that these cliffs aren't created assets yet, and they would need to be handcrafted so that they can be placed throughout a biome to blend with surrounding terrain in a believable manner. This can't be done procedurally due to technical limitations, so of course, time is the limiting factor. And keep in mind, when it comes to tall mountains, generally they have a pretty long distance building up to get where they are. So don't expect many standalone mega tall mountains in the middle of a plain in the future. Rocks have been known to be very, very annoying for vehicles on the ground, and we've learned recently that maps are going to be reviewed before they're imported because beyond the looks, they also need to be full of gameplay potential. Now, having a rough terrain can push somebody to travel by air and vice versa, but there needs to be some baseline that should be met. A decrease in rock scatter in specific areas is planned for the near future and is most likely going to be a reality with the new Pyro system. Water is an important part of the game as well, and that was never really originally envisioned. We've seen seas, but we've never been able to traverse them ourselves. And while swimming was removed from the roadmap for now, it will be a thing in the future. With buoyancy now in game in Alpha 3.11, it seems the physics of water will be expanded on quite a bit in the far future. We've heard talks of rivers, standalone lakes and ponds, as well as waterfalls. But what more could we see? Underwater caves and structures? Just remember, while developing land features on a spherical surface was tough to do, creating physically correct water features in the same way? Looking more towards what's been discussed in various videos from CIG, let's take a look at caves. Different caves, including ice caves, lava caves, and maybe even underwater caves, will be a thing as well. The weird part about this is that back in 2019, we were told Microtech would receive ice caves when it got caves.
When we do caves on Microtech, we want to make sure that they are proper ice caves and they fulfill that ice cave feel and look as cool as they can be. So not for 3.8, but in the near future.
Though they don't exist yet. Hopefully we'll see them soon. Planets will undergo seasonal changes in the distant future as well, which is actually expected to be fairly easy with the temperature humidity maps and the rotation and orbit of planets. Finally, unique planets and all planets in general will continue to be developed and expanded upon in the future. Specifically, ArcCorp has been mentioned as receiving new biomes, points of interest, and variety across the surface to fulfill the original vision of the planet. It always comes down to when most other things can be created easily and the devs can return to older assets, so don't get your hopes up for this happening soon, but expect ArcCorp to change a lot in the future. We've already seen this sort of retroactive improvement in practice with the moons and planets of Stanton and the new paintbrush tools. So as new cities and urban areas are created and more assets are brought online, expect to see new things in older planets, specifically, as I said, like ArcCorp. There is so much to go over when it comes to Planet Tech in the development of CIG's top-of-the-line tools that are used to create these monstrosities of creativity. More so than I can cover in a single video without creating a feature film. And we're already going quite long right now, so I'll leave all the resources that I picked information from in the video description. Also in the video description, you'll find my Twitch account, where I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 AM PST, giving away ships, prizes, and money, and chatting about Star Citizen, Cyberpunk, and other sci-fi games. Additionally, you'll find my latest ship giveaway, an Origin 135C, which you can win by following the link in the video description as well. Or maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member, where you'll get some decent perks like exclusive cinematics, early videos, and exclusive supporter streams. I'd like to thank you again for tuning into this video, and I hope to see you next time.